So welcome again to this workshop. I'm going to share the screen now. Bear in mind also that I have to, I don't think we need any sound at the moment. Okay, just bear with me a minute. Can everybody see the screen?
Yeah.
And there's no interruption, there's nothing blocking anything?
No.
No?
No, all good, ma'am.
Great. Okay, so keep yourselves on mute, which will be helpful. Okay, so as you can see here, and again, welcome to the workshop. And
yeah,
if you keep yourself on mute, that will be really good. The aim of the workshop is to explore the experiences that create blockages in our lives and consider how to release and let go. That is what these experiences or these workshops generally are to do with, is to how we can move the experiences that we have going on into something that's more powerful and more positive in our lives. Okay, so there's nothing intense, it's nothing strenuous. You've chosen to come here for whatever the reason, and we take it that what we're going to share is going to be positive. I think what I'll do is I'll stop my video because it kind of distracts me. And this particular workshop, as with others, are from my blog, which is, this is an original blog that I used to do, which is Way with Words, Spiritual Creative. And this particular one is actually on there. So I'm going to be reading from there, and then you'll get interactive breakout sessions to do as part of it. So this one was called Letting Go, the Power of Transformation. So you could find it and read it over if you so wish afterwards. And for those of you who do not know who I am Dr. Michelle Asantewa. A writer, publisher, and scholar as well, and I founded Way with Words. Those are my details where you can locate me. Now, as I said before, I write a regular blog, or it hasn't been so regular recently, but I started writing what were articles. I didn't really realize that they were going to turn into this new thing that's called a blog. And these articles were aimed at self-reflection, transformation, and that sort of thing. So what effectively I'm doing is transposing some of those blog posts or articles into these workshops so that they are proactive, you're using them, because otherwise they'll just sit there, which they have been, because the one that I'm sharing here was actually written in 2014. Seems an ages ago, which it was. So that's what these sessions are based on. They're based now on a new way of interacting with some of those posts. I'm hoping that you all received some of the clips that I've sent you, which were really background information, background practices to get you in the mood and the energy and the spirit of what you're trying to be. Before we really go any further, what I'd like us to do is to take a moment to do some breathing exercises, which we can do whilst we are watching this one of the clips that I sent you. So that would be you breathing in and out through your nose. We all know how to do that. We just you could, well, don't close your eyes. I'd rather you watch the clip as you're doing it, but just focus on your breathing as you're watching the clip. And that's our breathing. Okay, yeah, so I hope you enjoy that as much as I did, and I hope you weren't breathing in and out as you were watching it. Now, the reason why I wanted you to look at that is to express to you the importance of working with nature in your effort to transform, to feel the power of the transformative process that you can observe in nature, which is why also I sent you the thing about the moon phases, and to encourage you more and more to start to engage differently with nature, because as you observe nature, you see that there are these cycles, that nothing stays in that form, it just changes, and it changes to something usually better if we put in the work as the caterpillar was doing, or the butterfly is doing, whichever one. There's work that they're doing, even if it might seem like they're not really doing anything because they're just eating and eating and eating. That is our version of self-reflecting, then to butterfly out. And I coined this term, the butterflying freedom, which was also based on this, which was the name of this poem actually of mine. And in the butterflying freedom, I absorb the fierce rays, rhythms of translucent energy pour into the hollow deep dark. I expand in the variant glow. I take the quiet seat. I fly into the reaching light and levitate in the pull. I am swaying. The leap is swift, but alas, I take the stage and sigh. And is this process of leaping, relaxing, understanding that there is a leap that needs to happen. Something needs to happen for us to make that movement that we need, that needs to take place. So that's why I wrote this this poem particularly, is that movement that the butterfly, the butterflying freedom encapsulates. Okay, so I'm going to just stop the sharing a minute because there's a way in which I need to put the share screen function, which I haven't done, so that enables me to do something else. Okay, and I was trying to let other people in at the same time. So, oh, what happened? Yeah, it naturally did that. Just bear with me a minute. Yeah, I don't want it to be like that because I want to be able to also do this other thing. Yeah. I thought I was being really clever. Hold on a minute. I'm just checking the chat to see what you've written. Oh, okay. Okay. The people taking advantage of my. Okay. We can come back to those in a bit. So I found the article that I was looking for. Meanwhile, you can continue to interact with the chat and also, generally interact with the chat. And I will just be reading from this blog as I was trying to locate. So a few years ago, now that few years ago is well a few years ago, because this was done in 2014. 2 blog posts I wrote, I dedicated to this building that's called the Brown and Root Tower, which is in Collier's Wood. The first post or article looked at something I call the brown and root effect as symbolic of the lasting impressions of pain and trauma. The tower, which used to be outside as I walked home, is an eyesore landmark of this little area in Merton, but it's not possible to get to my home without passing it. I regard it as a symbol of stubborn blockages that hinder my spiritual path, which in effect is my journeying home. And the second shout or post that I did celebrated the tumbling of that tower, since it seemed that finally the block would be demolished. And I knew it was likely to be replaced by flats, any aspirations of a lovely cultural center seemingly redundant. But several years later, the monstrosity is still there. Actually, it's no longer there. At the time, it was still there. If the tower is a symbol of stubborn blockages, which a few years back I seemed ready to dismantle, how is it that the sign of it spiritually is still there? So this is what this article or this post was trying to do. So because I often write and speak about past traumas in a purposeful, self-reflective effort to free myself from the damage they do, I tend to think I'm over them, I'm over the trauma. In order to cultivate a deeper connection with spirit and kindle soul force, it is vital, I feel, to do the kind of freeing up and releasing that is the aim of self-reflecting. The legitimacy of release and renewal must be precise, in divine order and divine timing. The maturity, or rather the prematurity of liberation from a given experience produces an artificial outer expression of self. It is projected rather than perfected. Perfecting a renewed self is not as simple as I might have imagined or even might be imagined, given the fact that that still erected brown and root tower blighting my journey was still there. So moments ago, I referred to it as a monstrosity because some blockages are in truth demonic, meaning they are the destructive subconscious forces that manifest after some terrifying, usually terrifying experiences. They are repugnant little creatures embedded in the psyche, causing all kinds of mischiefs, despite varying attempts to live a whole and complete life. They are the little imps, whispering negativity, doubt, and fear every time I take a meaningful step forward. Tugging against my strong stride, they hold me back, just as the powerful gust of wind blows me back when I'm trying to walk past the ugly tower. And that's how it used to be in reality, this, because you're outside of the station, you're walking by, it's a long, big tower. And when you're walking and it's really windy, and sometimes it doesn't have to be that windy, you're just having to hold, you're being blown back. By holding me back, I mean they make creativity, productivity, and potential seem impossible. And they make those small steps toward my divine purpose feel heavy. Okay, so then we're going to get you to do a breakout session now. And as I said before, don't press the join if you don't want to be in a breakout session. So I think some of you didn't receive this clip from what I've seen in the chat, but I did send it out at some point. And the idea would be, in any case, consider the title, those of you who haven't seen it, and hopefully you'll be in a group with somebody who have seen it. Discuss that video clip, focusing on this statement. In any case, the statement itself should be focus for consideration and discussion. One of the contributors, I think she was a therapist, says in it that, considering herself as a soul, she said that before I came into this body, I knew exactly all of the challenges that she would face, but I knew that those would shape me and make me the person I am today. So your object would be to be discussing this, this particular quotation, but the video in general, okay? So did you, was that clear? You can unmute and tell me whether that, what you're being tasked to do is clear, okay? And can you give me a sense of who did receive the video in the first place?
I didn't get it.
I didn't. I
Nobody.
didn't get it.
Oh, ridiculous. How did you not get the video? Karina,
I didn't
did you get it?
either.
Yeah, I saw it.
No. I got
Okay.
it, and I watched it as well.
Some of you got it, some of you don't. I don't know how that would happen because I'll explain to you exactly how, oh, you can't see me. I'll explain exactly how I'm sending things to you. You book on Eventbrite. They give me that, they say you can message the attendees. So therefore that email that you use to book via Eventbrite, that is how I sent you an email. And if you're saying that you didn't get that, that's curious to me. And in that email, I sent, some of you would have seen this from other things that we've done. So for example, Sunflower, if you didn't get it, it's the same video. B, you would have seen this video, okay? So you will have a sense of that video. Karen, I don't know if you were on the last thing that I did.
What date did you send it? And I can just check.
It would have been about a couple of days ago. So it would have come via, like it's coming via Eventbrite, right? Clara, there are people that are here that I can see that have seen that video. But now in that last thing we did, you didn't get to really discuss that video particularly. Now it's really, think about the statement in any case. The statement is whether or not whatever your trauma is or experience that you consider to be negative or whatever it is, did you choose that? Okay, some people say they got it, but they didn't read the email. So it's in there. So at another time, do have a chance to go and look at it. But for now, I'd like you to discuss whether you feel that it's something that you do choose or have chosen or something like that. Just have a consideration of how you see yourself in terms of a being, in terms of an entity that exists in the now. Yeah. So I'm going to put you in breakouts. If you don't want to be in it, just don't go in it. Yeah. Because I create these automatically. So it's going to be doing like that. And as it says, you have 15 minutes. Hello, Shanks. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
I'm so sorry that I gave you the wrong link.
Don't worry. That's okay. Thank you for being.
Yeah, it was the one that was just immediate to my touch. Well, they've just had, for your benefit, Shanks, who's just joined us, they've had the other participants have just had a breakout session. They've
Okay.
one, but we've got another to do, and they're all looking interesting. Usually this is the bit I quite like because I see your face looking all like, yeah, but at the moment it's in one of those ones. So, okay, how was that experience? Could anyone share whichever groups you're in? Somebody might want to share what you were discussing, because that was quite a heavy, and when you actually watch it, I've shared it in the chat. For those of you who haven't seen it, go and see afterwards so you can get an overall perspective of where they're coming from, because this is it in isolation for most of you. So what were your thoughts having discussed at least, or what did you discuss that, or just random? Whatever, it's fine. You can share.
For me, it solidified the fact that you're not alone in trauma. Everybody has trauma at varying levels, and it's about whether you react to it or you respond to it. But then it's that whole series of I get to a point where I can acknowledge it's a trauma, and then I have to explain to the people who put me in that position that they put me in a traumatic position. But then culturally, no, it's just what it is, it's normal life. Well, actually, no, it was quite traumatic for me. And it's opening that conversation, first of all, and people being okay to talk about it and acknowledge it as a trauma. And then how do you move on from there? Because you can have the environment where, okay, I've acknowledged it and that's it, you just move on. And then you have the environment where, okay, we will keep talking about it till we work through it and we understand that it's a work in progress. But for me, it's just like, there's so many people walking around with trauma. It's just incredible. And it's kind of, I'm not, I don't think the word is reassuring, but it's kind of comforting to know that I'm not alone in that situation. I am not alone. So yeah, that's my takeaway. And thank you, ladies, for sharing.
Your group. Okay, thank you, Nadine. Anyone else? This is the bit where, as a teacher, I just then pick on people that I know will just speak if I pick on them and just say.
I was just like, I was in the group with,
Okay.
oh, sorry, I don't know how to say your name. Nisilla?
It's Nadine.
Nadine.
Yeah, I just put the N at the beginning of my name.
It was nice hearing everybody's story. I suppose as well, and like, when you was just about, we got just kind of cut off when you were saying about when you speak to somebody about the trauma and that the acceptance, because I do find culturally in Black families about the boundaries. There's no clear boundaries. It's like we're taught kind of parents, older people, hush your mouth, listen to me, I'm right, and do as you're told. And so it's like, if the whole thing of, if you know your your trauma and you're trying to heal, and then trying to put boundaries, that's very hard in our culture, I'm finding, because you're still a little pygmy when you're an adult, and still not to kind of disobey, do you know? And that can be very hard, because boundaries are very, very important, especially when you're trying to heal from trauma.
I think you're right. It does put you back to the child mode of you should be seen and not heard. And you're trying really hard to communicate something. And it's about, when do the adults get to the point where they acknowledge that actually this child stroke adult is crying out for help? They can see all the things that's wrong with you, but they almost don't want to acknowledge why those things exist. Whether part of that is because they have to take some responsibility or guilt, but some of them just refuse to acknowledge. And then in your head, you're thinking as an adult, okay, well, how do I prepare and protect the next generation from that same cycle? So it's hard.
And I believe as well, culturally, I see it because I do counselling and learning. I'm a trainee, but seeing that I don't have that anger towards my parents, because actually I see that they've gone through a lot of trauma, and
Exactly.
they've just taught me what they've learned from their parents, and they've learned, and their parents have had trauma, and it just goes on a cycle. And then it even goes up to that cycle of, actually this comes from slavery, where we had to they had to shut their mouth. We couldn't show pain. You had to get on with things. This is, and then it's a learned thing.
Okay, thank you for that. Did anyone agree with the statement, or were you still thinking about, do you need more time to really understand and think about that statement about, if you're thinking about, because some of us obviously don't necessarily believe in life cycles or reincarnation, which is where that that is tending towards, obviously, or even trying to get us to think about ourselves as a being who is ever, there's no stop, there's no ceasing from the person, that the being that you are. So if that's the case, if I'm ever more, how do I move? Because it's just like how the moon and the sun, everything is just in this constant and perpetual cycle. And if I'm an expression of that constant and perpetual cycle, we don't know what eruptions the moon is going through. We do actually, as women, know when that moon is going to be full.
Yep.
Know what's going on. We do have menses, we do have menstruation, and we know what happens there. And also we have menopause, which is also to do with the moon and what happens there. So even if you take away the experiential trauma, what about looking at those through the eyes of nature? The fact that naturally there are these ruptures, these things that seem painful. And we have certain autonomy over those because, for example, you can use certain remedies for these changes, but do we use them? Do we use the remedies, or do we just go, oh, it's my period again, I'm just gonna, yeah. They told me I can have a washout, yeah, but that's what my mum and them lot used to do. It's not gonna work for me. Do you see what I'm trying to get you to think? I'm trying to get us to get to a point where we're considering whether how responsible after a while we are for the situation, no matter how the situation has come at us. And then how, if we consider ourselves to be responsible, if we do, how do we change the dynamic that you, Charmaine, and you, Nadine, are talking about, so that in the next generation, that energy, that entity that is me isn't transferring that?
I think for me, it's identifying all the things that I wished I had and lacked, and creating those things for the next generation, like creating that safe space or that safe person, or acknowledging that they have a voice and an opinion, and allow them to voice it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a good way as well. So acknowledging what you
Lacked.
Yeah, what you lacked, and how you can encourage others to acknowledge what they have and give to others, young, especially the next generation. Anyone else want to share any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I will.
Roberta.
I think if I'm interpreting what you're saying correctly, and by all means say no if I'm not. I think in terms of various traumas I've been through, would I choose them to make me the person I am now? Cognitively, no. I could have got here without the trauma. I'd have been fine without being traumatized. However, if I think of it from, if you like, a less intellectual and spiritual level, then it's almost, okay, the universe has a plan. And so I need to, for some reason, be it past life, be it for my future life, I need to go through this situation. It's then balancing the two up. And for me, I think, well, okay, whether it's somehow my choice, which I don't always think it is, I don't think the initial one is. I think the third and fourth time, it's something that I'm familiar with. And I think we go to what's familiar, even if it's not necessarily good for us. We recognize something and we're attracted to it. At some point, you realize that what you're attracted to, I don't know, like pizza, is not going to be the best thing for you. Simplifying it. But wherever we find ourselves, if we then take responsibility and say, okay, how can I deal with this? How do I deal with this situation? Because I know it's making me unhappy. It can take many turns to find out exactly what of the situation or the trauma I think is making you unhappy, and dealing with it, whether it's a physical thing where you're like, okay, I'm going through this cycle every single month. How do I change it? Do I look into herbs? Do I look into meditation or something to help guide me through it. And then we take responsibility and action for it. I think the first thing is acknowledging that we're in a situation that is traumatic for us, and why that would be or could be, because I don't think the answer is always immediate. But then it's taking action and say, okay, I want to change it for me, and passing that on to the next generation. And very, very high level for me, one of the reasons I didn't have children was because I thought, I don't like them in the house, which to a certain extent is possibly true. But having had some trauma in my childhood, I was really concerned about how that would play out with another child, because I hadn't developed, I hadn't understood it, I hadn't grasped that. I've now grasped it later in life, and I can go, okay, fine. That's why I was concerned about having children. It's the relaying of the trauma before I dealt with it, which I think is an important thing to do. And as the lady said before, it's changing the message, the narrative, the behavior within self to then be able to express it to others. But I think we need to be careful and find a balance, because we can swing, and I've seen people swing the other way. If you're from a heritage whereby your parents thought nothing of picking up whatever was near at hand to, in quotes, discipline you, I've then found people of my generation will go the other way and not discipline their kids at all, because they're dealing with the trauma they had. I think, well, I'm not going to hit my kid. You don't want to brutalize your child, but you still need to discipline the child to make that, to help that child be more rounded, in my opinion. And it's finding that balance, and that's again part of the journey. That's my 2 cents. I'll now shut up.
Thank you, Roberta. No, don't shut up. I don't want anyone to shut up. I don't want anybody to feel shut up. You're locked in. I don't want you to feel shut up as well. No, so yeah, no, those are all really valuable points, and they're things that we can, keep bearing in mind, keep thinking about what we want even from this workshop, from this moment even that we're in, because there'll be some of us who will use this time effectively to do the things that they weren't able to do when they were not locked in, locked up, whatever term they want to use for it. And there are those of us who will just fester and just feel the trauma and feel the pain. And I think it's important for us to define our future, to define our aspiration. When this is done, where do we see ourselves? Where would we like to be? And consider this as doing that butterflying thing where you're just like kneading bread or grooving in to that time when it will come. Or even imagine it already there. There's another workshop that we do on affirmations, which is where it's already there. Imagine that aspiration as being already here. So you're living that all the time. I'm a size 10. Yeah, that kind of thing. But anyway, keep thinking about it, keep feeling, I think is one of you, because I've read some of the chats who were saying things, blockages are like to do with your emotions. I would say, bear in mind that emotions are very, very powerful to roll with. Yesterday, I was a completely different person because I'm editing a book, the next book that I'm doing, which will be out this month. And, doing the technicals, it was just driving me mad. I spent the whole day doing the same thing. I did one thing, it would just come back. I had to keep doing it over and over again. Like, after a while, I was just like that. And I was in tears. I was like, I'm actually crying. I can actually feel myself crying, And the day before it was the same. I actually felt myself crying. But the interesting thing is, I haven't really cried for a little while. So there was a part of me that was kind of like indulging in it. I was like, yeah, it's kind of self-pity. So kind of go with your emotions. Don't stifle them. When they come, just let them roll. Just roll with it, because they're not going to stay like that. It's going to be another day. Today is a completely new day. All right, so we're going to continue. with the next session or the next section, which is just continuing of the reading, to be honest, of this post. Share. Right, so we were doing, so we're now going to be here. All right, so carrying on from, whilst I'm reading, you can bear this in mind. So going back to that, the whole idea of the monstrosity or the demon. The worst ravages of these demons are reflected in a loss of creativity and a loss of creativity and forgetting. They have crowded the subconscious so overwhelmingly that it cannot fully remember its divine purpose. That understanding of divine purpose is what enables us, me at the time of writing, to nurture spirit, advance creatively instead of being wrapped up in the mundaneness of life, trying somehow to make it orderly or controlled, as opposed to the free flow that comes with creativity and self-trust. Recognizing my divine purpose and expressing my creativity clears my path. The demons are there to make fuzzy my memory and keep me in a position from which they can insatiably feed on my vulnerability. The more they feed, the weaker I am, and the longer it takes for me to dance in the rhythm of my creative light. That fierce ray that I spoke about in the Butterfly and Freedom poem. But demons and dragons have weak spots too. The elixir necessary to eliminate the blockages, or the metaphor of the brown and root tower, is enmeshed in the very subconscious wherein they are seated comfortably. In order to overcome the monster, I have to face it. How else can I locate the precise spot of vulnerability and thrust my dagger through it? So I'm going to share some memories with you, as I'm asking you to write down. You don't have to necessarily put them in there. So, and what I didn't say at the beginning was I do use storytelling and narrative as well to do some of these workshops. So consider this memory. The little girl was summoned by two ugly cousins. They made her strip naked. She saw the belt. She cannot remember if it was patent or real leather. They asked her to turn around. The lashes left scars. But being on her back, she could not see them properly. A little older, she one day noticed her finger rub against a raised bit of skin on her back. It seemed like it was the first time she had felt this tiny mound. Don't tell anyone about this, otherwise we'll give you some more. You hear? The cousins had told her as she put back on her clothes. She didn't remember the beating or the soreness of her back, but the warning. In this scenario, a likely demon is forgetting. Psychic amnesia does nothing for our sense of self, since they encourage us to project a false personality. Another would be terror. This creates a kind of psychic seizure, impotency, and disempowerment, making self-belief profoundly difficult. You may observe that the child only recalled the warning, not the beating. The significance is that this warning is restrictive. It is a blight, blocking forward movement, physically and mentally. It's a discordant rhythm of negativity that opposes the creative rhythm of light. It has possessed, that is manifested in the spirit of the child, submerged itself comfortably in her subconscious to the extent that she believes she has overcome the experience. Slaying this demon involves going to this subconscious place and dealing with the entirety of the experience, that both beating and warning induced the terror. that the scars are physical as well as psycho-spiritual. More than this, the girl might have retaliated, sought vengeance on some other child as a necessary means of survival. So listen to this other aspect. The girl has two pretty cousins. A few years older, she is often left to babysit the girls. Stripped naked, it's a time to take your bath, she tells them one day, preparing the way for many more days like this. The bubble bath is in one of those animal-shaped holders, an ugly dark green cat. She looks at the cute cousins huddled in the bath. If you don't do as I say, Devlin is going to eat you, fingers crossed, she says, slowly waving the bubble bath cat at the girls. Then she sings, Devlin, Devlin, Devlin's going to get you, and completes the chant with a giggle. She cannot see their scars, only hears them crying behind the locked bathroom door. The girls will not remember the limey, fresh smell of the bubble bath, the warmth of the water, nor the ugly green cat, but they will always remember the warning. Okay. Yeah, I actually meant for you to see another, they will always remember the warning. Okay, yeah, this is it. So again, you're going to go into your breakout rooms, and it doesn't have to be necessarily the memory that you wrote down, but or memories. You can share a memory you feel comfortable about expressing with your group. So try and go into that subconscious head, that subconscious space. Say whether you can see yourself being active or passive in the memory. What were you doing? Were you being done to, doing? What were you doing? What was going on? Say if you have ever shared it before, because sometimes we have memories which, you know, doing certain kinds of things trigger the memory, like this workshop could trigger a memory that you hadn't really considered before, and you might never have shared it. And if it's a memory that you often share, say why you think this is the case. Why do you share repeatedly this same memory? I mean, I have loads of those that I do, and I know my mum living with an elder, you can imagine that is a constant, constantly sharing the same memory, going back into the same space. Why does she do that? So that's what I'm asking you to consider here. All right. So once again, I hope that's clear. And I'm going to put you back. I'm going to put the breakout rooms again. I don't know whether you'll go back in the same ones. All right. So you got it clear what you have to do. All right. Hello. Am I seeing brighter smiles? I don't know.
You're seeing the smiles of information and sharing and everyone connecting and it tapping into something, you know, within us. It's great learning.
Oh, brilliant. That's great. That's great. Do you want to share?
Do you know what I found? I just found that with the sharing, even though our stories are individual and no one's story is the same, there's a connector. And for the group that I'm in anyway, I found that empathy was very present. We could relate, even though it wasn't necessarily ours, but it's like there was that spot that was like, okay, yeah, I get it. Okay, I may not have experienced it, but yeah, I feel like I get it. So it was, I find in general with trauma and life, the emotions can be so heavy, it can be isolating. And I think one of the other ladies touched on it before, you know, you're not alone, basically. That whole thing of, you know, we are all definitely connected, and that empathy is there. So yeah, it's great. I'm enjoying the workshop. Fantastic.
Thank you, Sunflower. I love calling you Sunflower. It just delights me to be calling you Sunflower.
I love it. It's great. Thank you. It's just that, it's the energy, it's bouncing.
It is, it's wonderful. Okay, so anyone else want to just express, you know, what they in their group was maybe discussing in terms, it doesn't have to be about the memory, it's just about that experience and that energy that you were exchanging and sharing. Anybody else? We're probably going to run over actually, because I've just seen the time. There was a little bit of delay when we started. If that's okay with everybody. B's coming back. Karen?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think within our group, we all had a shared memory.
Oh.
And which is a cultural, it was about physical abuse.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, which is kind of a cultural thing. And we spent time talking about that. And how we'd all experienced it, but in different settings, but then how we then took it forward. So then how did you then parent, and how did you manage to stop the cycle? But at the same time, you know, having the opportunity, if you did, to talk to your parent as an adult on the same level, and hearing about what happened to your parents and then your grandparents and going back. But I think it's quite powerful, what I took away, that we've all been able to put a stop to it at this generation. So it doesn't continue into the future. And just before we had to come out of the breakout room, a topic was mentioned, which I'm not going to discuss, but I just wanted to say that I shared that as well. And I think somebody else in the group said they shared it too. So I think sometimes you think, this is just my shared memory and it just happened to me. But actually, it's easier in a way to talk to people who are anonymous about your memories, and we all have a lot in common as women as to what we've shared.
Yeah.
What we've experienced, sorry.
Oh, yeah, thanks for sharing that, Karen. Yeah, I mean, on that issue of the topical, the cultural, sharing a shared memory is very powerful, because if you can flip it and share the transmuted energy, meaning when it's become something else, and so a next generation having these discussions is sharing something else, that energy is turned into something else, and you know, if it's done correctly, they will be sharing, hopefully, something that is positive, that is now piggybacking off of where you left off, and doing something that's much more progressive. They're not starting at ground zero again. They're starting with a renewed sense of self, you know, and understanding. And I think really being able to talk about those experiences, certainly with our generation, over our parents, is very, very empowering, because it liberates them as well. I mean, I don't want to really go too deeply into some of the other work that I do, which is more directly spiritually grounded in African spirituality and ancestorhood and stuff like that. And if you consider that our grandparents are us fast forwarded, we are like the latest expression of an ancestor. Yeah. So what are we going to be? You know, how are we going to be the ancestor, and what guise, what's the body, what's the energy that we are going to project into the future for that grandchild, niece, whatever. Yeah, you know, so this is some way we can start to think about it, not just the past, not even just the present, but the future as well. the self that we are trying to project and become as well. I didn't expect this to go this in this direction and this deeply, but obviously I opened a can of interesting caterpillars. All right, so I think I'll just fast forward with the finishing this article, and then we can come out again and have a little group session, if that's okay, as well. So bear with me again. Where was it now? There's so many of these. I never know which one it is to go to. This one. Okay then. I love this image with the lotus and the little moon doing something interesting there. So the troubling thing about blocks or psychic demons is that they create ripples or ruptures in our lives. Or said another way, they reproduce themselves but transform shape. Victims sometimes become oppressor, often because they have not slain their demon or sought the precise pressure point and method by which to defeat them. The girl, in our narrative before, must now face both experiences and undergo a more honest reflection about her self-development and nurturing. Time will pass. She will become adult and revisit these stories, but if reviewed in isolation, the third eye has not been properly opened, and there would only be partial understanding of what they signify. So essentially, if that's the case, the tower remains. And there's also an obvious thread in the story, which some of you were really picking up on when you're forced into going back culturally and going back into your childhood, into your familial experiences. The experiences are connected with family. Here begins the silent feud, the incomprehensible resentments, hatred sometimes. A cycle of misunderstandings give way to the past and forgotten gremlins residing comfortably in the psyche of all the players in their parts, preventing the fullest expression of love and understanding necessary to strengthen family bonds. But without this understanding, the stagnation impacts the individual as well as the collective. The individual must do the thorough self-reflection in the interest of advancing the well-being of family. The well-being of a family promotes the well-being of the individual. The lasting effect is the mending of those ruptures. This will have a powerful bearing on how we see ourselves within the wider community. So I suppose you're wondering about the outcome of that story, the choicest happy ending of it. So let's just look again into this well. The girl is now a woman. Sometimes when she finds herself looking into the well of her memories, she recognizes the ugly cousins wielding the belt. In another moment, she hears the sound of the pretty cousins crying behind the bathroom door. She's sorry for them, though a wave of wickedness tells her it was child's play. She tries, but feels nothing for the ugly cousins. One day, in some sudden moment of stillness, she compresses the two experiences. As she looks deeper into the well, she hears a voice saying, "I cannot change the past. I recognize how these experiences have shaped me into the person I am now. And I can let them go. They no longer have a place in my life." She struts to a window as though something had summoned her there. She notices how bright it is outside. The sun had just made its morning appearance and releases a sharp wink in her direction. She allows herself to breathe in a new feeling with the sunlight blushing her cheeks. The tingling and tickle came with the same voice as before. "When you have a chance, do some work on the garden. Those weeds are spiraling out of control. It's time you remove them." With the same sudden impulse, she moves to the back of the house as if urgently needing to get to the garden. She sighs at those ugly weeds. Where are my garden gloves? She wonders, and begins to search for them in a forgotten cupboard somewhere in the house. So consider this. How to transmute the memory. Towers, those blocks blighting our creativity, hindering our onward journeys, only possess us interminably if we let them. The opportunity to let go comes with a kind of readiness to recognize the right moment. Some significant age, like turning 40 or 50 latter being my case, might be the trigger when we're looking into the well of our existence over time. Fear of the impending changes might take over. So we hold on to the tower, since to release it is to enter the void of the uncharted. We've known the previous pains and are frightened to replace these with others. We think this is the natural exchange, pain for pain. But in the rightful embrace of change and transformation, what's likely is the exchange of pain for the return to the innocence of creativity, of feeling free to express ourselves unhindered, unafraid. This next scene here that you can see before you, which I'm hoping by now you have read, is a method that I want you to consider of dismantling this tower. And to do that, I'd like you to use the chat to write at least 2 positive, affirmative phrases you see in this dialogue. Okay, so you're writing, look at it, and you're taking where you can find them at least 2 positive, affirmative phrases. Give you time to do that. Yes, I'll do that in the chat. Okay, so let's try and dismantle this tower. In our memory well, we'll find all kinds of cavities that have rotted our dreams and aspirations. Any kind of rejection is a form of foundation for a tower. Any kind of abuse throws terror on our psyche and casts a prevailing shadow on our creativity. To remove this shadow and dismantle the tower, we need to take the bold step of looking honestly into the deep, dark well of memory. Those demons will run and hide, but the sword is your readiness to expose yourself to them and strike at their weakest point. So if we were doing that task, you will have found positive affirmation in, I want to be a lawyer. Yes, I am going to law school. So even in the midst of negativity, you are still able to isolate what is positive, and it's something we can take forward with us. Someone might be saying one thing to you, but you don't identify with those bits. When you start doing this continuous practicing of positive thinking, using your affirmations, what happens is you start, even as they're speaking to you, or acting out in a way to you, you are natural, your beingness is now rejecting that which is not for your ultimate divine good. You start to do this naturally, and negativity doesn't enter your reality because you have redefined that reality. And so in doing so, that character, the T, the man, the boy, the child, the whomever, transmutes the rejections, changes their rippling vibration. He crushes the blightful tower. His third eye now regards the words as sword by which to defeat the dragon. Pain is not, after all, replaced by more pain. The metamorphosis is a beautiful thing. The spirit dances. The heart pulsates with the delighting rhythm it has longed for. He's in the divine light. He's arching towards it and basking in its beauty and butterflying freedom. That is effectively empowering oneself and being at your most powerful, your most free, and basking in the butterflying freedom, as I conceive it. So thank you. I'm just going to now come out of this. Okay, guys, so this is our, this is our moment. That was it. That was the end of our session together. And good night to those of you who have to leave. But I hope that was useful. Thank you, Roberta. I hope that was useful for you. If you have any questions or any further sharing or anything you'd like to do, this is your chance to do so. We can at least stay on for another 10 minutes or so, I believe. Thanks, Karinya.
I was just thinking about the boy in the class with the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sharing with the group before, when I was at school, we had a teacher there, Mr. Humbleby, and he divided the class into two. He had all the black girls and boys on one side, and he had everyone else on the other side. And he then sat on the desk and he was asking us questions, and he asked us what we wanted to become, the girls. And they were saying nurses and teachers, and the boys were saying, you know, like architects and sports or whatever. And he just, listen, he had this hearty laugh on him. He sat there and he laughed and he was rocking on the desk. And he says, you girls, by the time you're 16, would have had 2 kids, and you boys, by the time, I think he said 18, you'll be in prison. And that was the teacher.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm shaking. I put myself on mute so that I don't. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure most of us can really relate to that, which is why I use that as an example, because something that's unfamiliar, like just with the other shared experiences, we could all attest to these. So you can't even see me. You could attest to some of those. I mean, I would have had those. You know, the same kind of sayings, but it's just knowing. So for example, when we were talking about transmuting, you have your child now coming home and telling you that you have a way, or your grandchild, or your whichever, you know, your niece or whomever, and now with your empowered self, knowing how to switch words into swords, is just doing that mechanically, and therefore for your child, you're like, okay, let's isolate this now. So how could you know? So you no longer need that to be our narrative, which you know, certainly for us is something that we need to be thinking more and more about doing. Don't allow ourselves to walk into those narratives and to expand in those narratives. Let's expand in our light, you know, let's, you know, smile through it, you know. So find ways more and more to be able to do this as I said, there are some things that you can do, which is to observe nature. Nature is power. And if you only utilize it, nature and phenomena like cosmological phenomena, these are powerful. And the more you start to attune with those are the frequencies that you start to inhabit, that then deflects the other vibrations that are coming, because those vibrations are coming on a lower frequency. You're now vibrating at a different level, and so they don't impact you as much, no matter what they are, no matter where they're coming from. They could be your immediate family, they could be immediately from your loved one. Unfortunately, you know, you go through changes, and remember, you're not trying to step into their reality and the reality that they have created for you. You are shaping your future, shaping your now, and generating new energy, because all of it is energy as well. That trauma, no matter what it is energy that can either stay with you, locked in, or you can just allow it, you can just release it. You have the choice. You have the choice, and you have the the will as well to do it.
But what powered me, I would think, is that Mum, on a Thursday, my mum sent us all to Black History lessons classes, and we went every Thursday for about 5 years. And you know, it gave me, I don't know, when you heard that where we come from, we're not just slaves, we're creators, we're inventors, we're everything, you know, everything comes from us. And I had this sense of, I don't know, like upliftment, you know, I don't know. So when, I don't know, I just thought to myself, like years later, I thought, you know, if I had the tools then, I wouldn't have felt so bad. Do you know what I mean? Because I was thinking, you don't know nothing, you know, you don't know nothing about me, you know. But oh, it wasn't a good time.
But then, thank you. I mean, again, another thing that we could do is also sort of mentally, spiritually, psychically, however way we do it. We can do things where you go, you know, there's a part of you, like the quotation is saying, you can't change the past, but you can change the energy, in a sense, of the past, because you can go back. I usually have a picture of my young self, you know, and I can have conversations with that young self. You know, I can try and release that young self, you know, look at that young self, because there's still a bit of me, you know, in there.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are these things that you can do, and the more you do, or when I started certainly doing that, I've just found, or when I went back to that point, I thought, well, a lot of these things happened when I was this age, you know, and I'm going to see what I was doing at this age. And then I took a picture of myself around that particular age, and I put that picture out there, and you know, you can start to see the picture glowing, you know, see the picture, do what you want to do, how you would have liked it to have been.
Yeah.
Because what we certainly do is bearing in mind what I'm saying about it being energy, that energy is there in that 8-year-old, that 15-year-old, that whatever year-old. And that 15-year-old, there's a part of them that's now part of the 50-year-old.
Yes.
So
yes.
What I want to do is have a communication from 50-year-old self with 15-year-old self and say, look, it's me and you in this thing, and I'm sorry that I really run away from you. And do you know what I mean? It's up to you. This is a dynamic because it's all you. You are this divine being that you're now working your way through to healing. And so some of the, I mean, I've obviously just rushed it, but I was really trying to emphasize the observances of what's natural, and know that you are an expression of that nature. You are one of them, you know. You and the moon, especially as women, have a connection. I don't know if you guys are observing how crazy the weather's behaving, and how, you know, in 1 month in October we had 2 full moons, and do you know what I mean? Are you observing these things, and what do they mean? What's happening at new moon, you know? What's going on? So pay attention to these things, because you'd be surprised how freeing they are for you. In the last workshop, we talked about petals and flowers and things like that. Look at them. I get these flowers. If you go to Marks and Spencer's, you can get these flowers. They're actually roses, flowers. And you can just see how they start from their little bit when you get them. They're all like that, aren't they? And then they just do this amazing. And you can just every day just be looking at that. Imagine if you could measure the feeling or the energy that's coming at you when you're watching that flower, that rose bloom. Or, you know, over time doing that, you start to empower yourself in the fullness of your divine self. You transform.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. So I was just finishing up with my long talking.
No, not at all. It made me think. You mentioned the moon and cycles, and something you'd sent out that I haven't seen. Did you send out something about moon and cycles?
Okay. Yeah, that one was just about the moon phases, which isn't really. I mean, if you go, that one is not so in depth. what was it you, Roberta, that was also asking me? Oh, right, okay. Yeah, no, that's sweet. Somebody was asking me about the what you call it, the article that I was reading. I think I didn't put it in there. It's but it's on a blog post. It's called Letting Go the Power, who can't type, of Transformation. And then it's on Do Way with Words, and it will come up. Okay. But the moon cycle thing, no, I didn't send it out. I did send that one out, but that's not a specific one that there's loads of other ones that I'd love to send you. And to be honest, when I do this follow-up from this, I will do that. Okay. I will send you some interesting things to look at.
Thank you.
Okay.
There it is. Now, thank you, everybody. I'll look forward to whatever the next Power of will be next year, because, well, it's now the end. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, thank you, and have a
Everyone,
wonderful.
look after yourself and stay safe.
Yeah, everybody do that. That would be great. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Yeah, on this workshop.
Thank you. Marvelous.
I'm just trying to read what Clara is saying. I'm going to get the email sent to the participants to have the various materials you shared in it. Sorry, I didn't get it. Okay, yeah, I will do that. Everyone, have a wonderful evening. Yeah, take care. Thank you all for joining the session. Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for sharing, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.